They say she's strong, they call her independent, but no one tells you the truth about the woman who lives alone without a man, not even Jung, not in the way she feels it in her bones, not in the quiet nights when her reflection becomes a stranger, not in the silence after she locks her own door. The truth is buried deep beneath labels and illusions, hidden behind empowerment slogans and curated smiles. But the unconscious knows. It always knows, because every woman who walks alone is at war, not just with the world, but with the archetypes within her, the anima, the mother, the temptress, the orphan. They all speak loudly. They whisper lies and truths in equal measure. Some days she believes she's free. Other days she's haunted by the echo of footsteps that never come. That's the part they don't tell you. That solitude is not always strength. Sometimes it's exile. She tells herself she chose this. She crafted her space, lit her candles, arranged her sanctuary. But in the mirror, she sees her mother's shadow. The sacrifices, the resentment, the cold bed sheets, the hidden tears. She promised herself she would never need a man. And yet, every wound tells a different story. Rejection etched into her skin like a silent script. Love unspoken. Affection withdrawn. Childhood memories distorted by emotional famine. And in the quiet of her home it all returns. Jung spoke of the shadow, the disowned self. And in the woman who lives alone, the shadow grows. She wears competence like armor. She performs independence like theater. But beneath that surface there is rage. A rage so ancient it predates language. A fury born from centuries of being silenced, abandoned, owned. She doesn't cry anymore. She judges, she scans, she controls. Because to surrender now would be fatal. Every object in her home has been placed with precision. Her calendar is full, her phone never silent, but she has long forgotten the sound of being seen. The kind of presence that disarms, the kind of gaze that penetrates without conquest, the kind of touch that doesn't devour, and so she builds her empire, her body, her brand. But in her dreams, Jung appears, not as a father figure, not as a guide, but as a mirror, and what she sees is not who she thought she was. The woman who lives alone is not lonely, not always, but she is hunted by projections, by expectations, by the ghosts of men who used her, praised her, feared her, fled her. She became too much, or not enough. She laughed too loud, or didn't respond. She was punished for being visible, or punished for disappearing. So she made a deal with the world. I'll disappear, but I will not be erased. I will leave no space for pain, no opening for betrayal. I will become the man I never met. And she did. She pays the bills. She makes the decisions. She fixes the sink. She handles the breakdowns. She carries the weight. But somewhere, beneath the steel, something weeps. A girl who never learned to receive. A woman who no longer believes in softness. A soul that's tired of surviving. And yet she cannot stop. Because if she slows down, if she pauses, the darkness creeps in. The questions return. The ache resurfaces. What if I was never meant to do this alone? But pride is a cruel master, and the persona she built demands applause. She is admired, respected, envied, but rarely loved, because to love her would require seeing her, all of her, the fear, the shame, the hunger, the need, and most people aren't willing to go there, so she learns to perform detachment. She makes it look effortless, but at night her pillow remembers. Her sheets know the truth. Her body, untouched for years, screams in silence. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And this exile disguised as empowerment, is not fate. It is defense. It is trauma speaking with lipstick on. It is the shadow in heels. But she doesn't know this yet. She only knows that something is missing, and she hates herself for wanting it. She shames the part of her that longs, that hopes, that dreams of being held, because needing is weakness, and she was taught to be strong. No one tells you that the woman who lives alone is both queen and prisoner. She rules her world, but she cannot escape it. Every victory feels hollow. Every milestone is followed by a silence so loud it rattles her soul. She has no one to tell, no one to collapse into, and so she doesn't collapse. She stiffens, she smiles, she posts, she survives. But thriving? That's a myth she stopped believing in long ago. And still, there is beauty in her, a beauty forged in fire. She is a cathedral built from pain. Every scar a stained glass window, every betrayal a bell tower. She has depth that terrifies, insight that disarms, and that is why most cannot touch her. Because to touch her is to be undone. And she knows this, so she stays distant. She says she's protecting herself, but part of her is protecting them from the magnitude of what she carries. She wasn't born this way. No woman is. She became this, slowly, piece by piece, wound by wound. Every betrayal carved a new layer of armor. Every abandonment taught her how to disappear. Every lie pushed her deeper into herself, until one day she stopped waiting, stopped asking, stopped hoping. That's when they started calling her strong. That's when the world began to celebrate her solitude. But they never saw the corpse of her innocence beneath that strength. They never saw the funeral she held in secret. She laughs now, but not from joy, from irony, from detachment, from knowing too much. She's been the lover, the muse, the therapist, the trophy. Never the one who is chosen when the masks come off. They say she's intimidating, that she's too much. They don't realize they're speaking to the shadow she built to survive them. And now even she can't find her way back to softness, because softness got her hurt. Softness was used against her. Softness was a liability. So she buried it, deep. Jung called it the animus, the masculine within the feminine, but hers became a fortress. Her inner man doesn't protect her, he dominates her. He silences her yearning, mocks her emotions, commands her to keep moving, keep achieving, keep pretending. And she obeys, because she doesn't know who she is without him. She forgot. And the world rewards her for the forgetting, for being self-sufficient, unattached, unbothered. But the truth is, she is starving. Starving for presence, for connection, for being chosen without performance. She walks into a room and commands it, but no one touches her. Not really. They orbit her. They admire from a distance, because power intimidates, and they don't know how to meet it with tenderness. So she becomes myth, icon, idea, never woman, never flesh, never heart. She learns to live in the echo of what might have been. She builds shrines to lost futures. She tells herself she's free. But freedom without intimacy is just another kind of prison. There are nights she sits in her silence and hears her mother's voice. Not the real voice, the one in her blood. The one passed down through generations. Women who were never heard, never held. Women who swallowed their rage and wore it like perfume. Women who disappeared into roles and called it love. She carries all of them, in her bones, in her dreams, in her wounds. And when she closes her eyes, she sees them, not judging her, not envying her, just asking, are you really free? The woman who lives alone isn't always alone. She has lovers, brief, intense, forgettable, men who want a taste of her fire but not the ashes, men who say she's fascinating but never stay long enough to see what she's hiding, men who take, then disappear, leaving her emptier than before. And she pretends not to care. She tells herself she knew it would end. But every time, something fractures, something closes, something hardens, until love becomes a ghost story she no longer believes. She reads Jung not for comfort, but for clarity. She seeks understanding in symbols, myths, archetypes. But the truth is, she wants someone to hold her hand through the chaos. Someone who sees her not as a concept, not as a force, but as a woman. But she doesn't ask. She doesn't dare. Because need is dangerous. Need makes her visible. Need makes her real. And she's been punished for being real before. And so she performs the ritual of solitude. She makes her coffee. She waters her plants. She organizes her life into perfect rows. But beneath the surface, chaos brews. Longing whispers. Dreams intrude. Her subconscious rebels. The anima stirs. The feminine calls out, begging to be seen, felt, cherished. But the anima says no. He says, you don't need anyone. You're above that. You're better alone. And she listens, because he sounds like survival. But survival is not the same as living. There is a cost to carrying yourself, a price for always being the strong one. No one checks in, no one notices, because you never falter, you never ask. But inside, she's collapsing, quietly, beautifully, like a cathedral in the fog, and no one sees it. That's what no one tells you, that the woman who lives alone doesn't always want to, that sometimes she dreams of being found, not rescued, not saved, just found. She walks past couples and wonders if they're faking it, if they lie in bed, back to back, pretending. She tells herself she's better off alone than living a lie, and maybe she is, but that doesn't erase the ache, the longing for skin, for breath, for a voice that says, I see you, not what you do, not what you've built, just you, raw, bruised, glorious. And yet she doesn't show it, because the world is cruel to women who want. It calls them desperate. It mocks their longing. So she hides it. She becomes desirable but never desiring, attractive but untouchable, powerful but unchosen. And in that paradox, she suffers, quietly, elegantly, and no one knows. Jung said the soul is not in the mind, but in the body. And her body remembers everything. The nights she wept alone, the hands that left too soon, the promises broken, the orgasms faked, the moments she dimmed her light to be loved. Her body knows. And now it is shut down, guarded, closed, suspicious, waiting for someone who won't just enter her bed, but her spirit. And she's not sure he exists. So she laughs at romance. She mocks love songs. She rolls her eyes at weddings. Not because she doesn't care, but because caring hurts. Caring reminds her that beneath the strength is a girl who once believed, and she's ashamed of that girl. She betrayed her. She left her behind in pursuit of perfection. Now she's a masterpiece no one touches, a poem no one reads, a fortress with no key, but the dream never leaves. The dream of being met, being unraveled, being known, not by everyone, just one. One soul who doesn't run, one man who sees beyond the image, beyond the mask, beyond the myth. And if he never comes, she tells herself she'll be fine. She's always been fine, but fine is a cage, and the door is open, but she can't step out. Not yet. She tells herself stories to survive, stories about freedom, about choice, about strength. But some nights, those stories fall apart, and all that's left is the silence, the ache, the echo of a life she didn't ask for, but chose anyway, chose out of necessity, out of disappointment, out of pain that never had language. She became the woman who needed no one, because the girl who needed too much was never loved right. There are parts of her no one knows, not because she hides them, but because no one stays long enough to earn them. She has entire galaxies of emotion locked behind her eyes. Storms, suns, sacred places, but no one asks. They just assume she's fine. She's got it all together. She's successful. She's radiant. She's resilient. But they don't see the price. They don't see the loneliness that clings to her skin like a second layer. Jung would call it a complex, a psychic knot formed from years of unmet needs, repeated patterns, silent grief. And this complex drives her. It shapes how she speaks, how she moves, how she loves. She's not aware of it. Not fully, but she feels it. Every time she pulls away before she can be left. Every time she deletes the message she wanted to send. Every time she says, I'm okay, when her chest is heavy with silence. There's a particular kind of grief only women like her know. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, constant. It's the grief of birthdays alone, of dinners cooked for one, of fixing the curtain rod without help, of attending weddings with a rehearsed smile. It's the ache of knowing you can do it all, because you have to, because there is no one else. And yet, every time you prove it, you feel less human, less seen, more tired. She doesn't want to be saved. That's the lie they tell about women like her. That she's waiting for a man to fix it? No. She's waiting to be recognized, to be met, to be mirrored. She wants someone who doesn't flinch when she breaks, someone who holds her power without trying to tame it, someone who sees her rage and doesn't run. But the world isn't built for that kind of intimacy. So she settles for fragments, text messages, one-night promises, digital ghosts. There are moments when she looks in the mirror and doesn't recognize herself. The woman staring back is powerful, beautiful, but distant, hollow, like she's been living in survival mode for so long that she forgot how to feel. She touches her own skin and wonders when she stopped being soft. When did she trade desire for control? When did she forget the sound of her own laughter, not the performative one, but the real one? She knows the archetypes, she's read about them. The maiden, the mother, the crone, but she sees herself as none of them, or all of them, depending on the day. There are mornings when she feels ancient, heavy with knowing, and nights when she feels 16 again, terrified, hopeful, undone. There is no linear path through womanhood, no clear map, only a spiral, a descent, a return, and she is still descending. Jung wrote of the process of individuation, of integrating the self, but no one tells you how violent that process can be, how much it hurts to meet your shadow, how confronting it is to realize that the very thing you feared, being unloved, unwanted, unseen, was something you began to recreate, that in your effort to protect yourself, you became the very thing that kept love out. This realization is not gentle, it burns, it shatters, and yet in the ruins, something sacred begins. The first step toward wholeness is not love, it's truth. Brutal, piercing, unfiltered truth. The truth that you've been performing a version of yourself for so long, you forgot the sound of your own soul. The truth that independence became isolation, that boundaries became walls, that solitude became punishment disguised as empowerment. She wants to stop, to drop the act, to scream, to weep, but she can't. Not yet. There's too much pride, too much fear. She fears being pitied more than she fears being alone. And that fear keeps her silent, keeps her strong, keeps her locked in a story that no longer fits. But the soul doesn't lie. And hers is restless. There's a hunger that rises at night, not for food, not for sex, for witness, for someone to say, I see you. I see the effort, the pain, the beauty. I see how you never gave up, how you kept going, how you built a life from ashes. She's not asking for rescue. She's asking for reverence, for realness, for someone who doesn't flinch at her scars. But she knows that kind of presence is rare. And so, she begins with herself. She starts to listen to the parts she's silenced. The girl who still cries when no one's looking. The woman who wants to be touched without being consumed. The soul who craves connection without losing herself. She begins to tell the truth, not to the world, to herself. She says, I am tired of pretending. I am tired of carrying it all. I am tired of being untouched, unread, unfelt. And for the first time in a long time, she breathes. Not just to survive, but to feel. She touches her own face and doesn't rush. She lies in bed without distractions. She allows the ache, the grief, the longing. She doesn't judge it. She welcomes it, because pain, too, is a messenger. And her pain has something to say. Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But no one tells you that becoming is brutal. It demands death, of illusions, of masks, of identities that once kept you safe. She is dying, and being born at the same time. And it is terrifying, But she is not alone. Not really. There are others like her, silent warriors, women who live alone not because they have no choice, but because they made the hard choice to stop settling, to stop shrinking, to stop waiting for someone to give them permission to live. These women are not weak. They are not broken. They are sacred, and their journey is not shameful. It is holy. But holiness doesn't look like they told you. It doesn't wear white. It doesn't glow. It bleeds. It screams. It walks barefoot through broken glass and still dares to love again. That is her holiness, not in her perfection, but in her refusal to disappear, in her insistence on staying alive in a world that prefers her muted, small, polite. She has rage in her holiness, lust, madness, and that too is divine. There are days she wants to give up, not die, just disappear, be invisible, evaporate, not forever, just long enough to not have to pretend, to not have to explain, to not have to carry the weight of being the strong one again. But she can't, because there are too many eyes watching, too many people relying on the idea of her, not her essence, her image, and so she performs, again, 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 and a little more of her soul slips into shadow. Jung warned us. The persona is a mask, necessary, yes, but dangerous if mistaken for the self, and hers has become so convincing, even she forgets it's a lie. The poised voice, the calm answers, the curated wisdom, but at 2 a.m., when the mask slips, the truth floods in. She is tired, she is tender, she is terrified, and no one knows. She scrolls through her phone like an addict, looking for something. Not love, not connection, just evidence. Evidence that she exists, that someone, somewhere is reaching for her. But there's only noise, flashes of flesh, empty words, and she closes it, feeling more alone than before. Because solitude is not just being alone. It's being untouched in a world obsessed with touching. There are days she speaks to God. Not the God of religion, the God inside her, the one who watches, the one who never left. She doesn't pray. She demands. She says, "Show me, tell me, where is the love that won't leave? Where is the man who won't shrink? Where is the softness that doesn't shatter?" And God doesn't answer, not with words, but with silence. And she realizes, maybe the silence is the answer. Maybe she was never meant to wait, because waiting implies absence, and she is full, overflowing. She doesn't need to be completed. She needs to be mirrored. And until that mirror arrives, she walks, alone. Not because she's failed, but because she's sacred. Because every step alone is a prayer. Every breath without begging is a reclamation. She is not waiting for a man. She is becoming a woman worthy of herself. Still, the ache remains. That quiet craving for warmth, for being known, for intimacy without fear. And she wonders if she's too broken for that, if she's too far gone. But broken is not her truth. It's just her story. A story she can rewrite if she dares. If she stops performing strength and starts embodying truth. If she dares to say, "I need, I want, I feel." And that doesn't make me weak. It makes me real. Realness is dangerous. It threatens the systems, the men who want compliance, the women who fear their own longing. But she was never born to please. She was born to burn, to unsettle, to awaken. And awakening comes with loss. She's lost lovers, friends, family, not because she's hard to love, but because she stopped lying. And when a woman stops lying, the world gets scared. She doesn't apologize for her silence anymore, or her distance, or her standards. She doesn't shrink to be digestible. She doesn't flatter to be liked. She is done playing small. And yes, that means fewer calls, fewer invitations, but it also means deeper nights, deeper truths, deeper freedom. Some days she longs to be touched, but not just skin to skin, soul to soul. She wants to be undone by presence, not performance. She wants someone who doesn't fix her, doesn't flee her, doesn't fear her fire. But if no one comes, she will not abandon herself again. That is the vow, the silent promise. She is hers. Finally, there is power in a woman who chooses herself, not as rebellion, not as trend, as truth. She no longer needs permission to exist, to want, to rest, to rage. She writes her own mythology. Not the virgin, not the whore, not the wife, not the widow. Something older, wilder, sacred. She is not a role, she is a revelation. Jung said that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off parts of the self, but by embracing them. And she is ready to meet the parts she silenced. The needy one, the angry one, the sensual one, the sad one. She calls them home, one by one, and they come, hesitant, fractured, beautiful. And together they form a woman no one told her she could be. This woman doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't perform. She radiates, she attracts by being, not doing. She is not desperate, she is deep. And those who come to her must come clean. No masks, no games, no fear, because she has no room for less. Her space is sacred, her body, a temple, her silence, thunder. She still has bad days, of course, days where she questions it all, days where the loneliness bites. But those days don't define her, they refine her. She no longer drowns in them, she lets them pass, like storms, like waves, and she stays, present, rooted, real, because the woman who lives alone without a man is not missing anything. She is rediscovering everything, her voice, her rhythm, her worth. She is not a victim of love, she is the embodiment of it, fierce, raw, unapologetic, and slowly the world shifts. Not because she demands it, but because she exists, fully, without compromise, without apology, without shame. They think she's cold, they say she's bitter, but what they're really seeing is clarity, the kind of clarity that only comes after betrayal has burned away illusion. She doesn't play anymore. She doesn't dance for crumbs. She doesn't beg to be chosen. She knows now, love isn't given to those who perform. It's given to those who dare to stay open. And that's what she's doing. She's staying open, in her own way, quietly, fiercely. But don't mistake her openness for availability. She is not for everyone. She is for those who see, who feel, who can hold silence without needing to fill it. Her presence is heavy, yes, but it's also healing. She doesn't want small talk. She wants soul talk. She wants you raw, not rehearsed, and she'll wait, for years, if needed. Because what she's building is not a relationship. It's a resurrection. The world taught her to chase, to please, to compromise. She unlearned all of it, and now she walks differently, talks differently, loves differently. There's no script here, no performance, just presence. And that presence is intimidating to those who haven't faced their own shadow. Jung would say, you meet your fate on the road you take to avoid it. And for many, she is that fate. She is the confrontation they've been avoiding, the mirror they're not ready to face. She doesn't pretend anymore, not even with herself. If she's hurt, she says it. If she's done, she leaves. No drama, no noise, just truth. She's burned too many versions of herself trying to be loved. Now she only wears her own skin. And if it's too much for someone, so be it. She no longer dims for people afraid of fire. Fire. That's what she is now. Not a flicker, not a flame. A wildfire. Cleansing, unforgiving, necessary. She destroys what no longer serves, within and without. And yes, it's lonely, but it's real. And she'll take real over comfortable any day. Because comfort is where her soul went to sleep. And now she's awake. And she'll never go back. She walks past couples and sees through the smiles, the codependency, the fear, the quiet desperation. She doesn't envy them anymore. She prays for them, because she knows what it means to be alone and whole. Not lonely, whole. There's a difference, and the world doesn't understand it. Yet. But some do. Some feel it. The ones who've walked through fire, too. The ones who lost everything and found themselves. They find her. Not easily, not quickly, but inevitably, because like attracts like. And when they meet, there's no game, no chase, just recognition, soul deep. And when that happens, when it finally happens, she won't run. She'll stay. Because she's no longer afraid of being seen. She used to fear intimacy. Not sex, intimacy. The kind that strips you, exposes you, demands your truth. But now, she craves it. Not as a cure, as a home. A place to rest, to melt, to release. She wants love that's not afraid of her wounds. Love that doesn't need her fixed. Love that holds space without trying to fill it. She knows what she deserves now. Not in theory, in blood, in memory, in pain. She earned it through years of silence, through nights of aching, through every moment she chose herself when it would have been easier not to. That's the kind of love she's waiting for. Sacred love, grounded love, love that doesn't need fireworks to feel alive, and until then she creates, not from emptiness, from overflow. She writes, she moves, she dances, alone. Not because no one asks, because no one qualifies. There is power in that, in choosing yourself over and over, in not settling, in loving from fullness, not lack. They think she's angry, and sometimes she is, but it's not rage, it's grief, unprocessed, ancient, passed down through every woman who was silenced, erased, owned. Her anger is not violence, it's clarity. It says, I remember. I remember who I was before the world told me who to be, and I'm taking her back. And that reclamation is messy. There are relapses, old habits, ghosts that whisper, but she doesn't fight them anymore. She faces them, names them, thanks them, then releases them. That's the work, the real work. Not becoming perfect, becoming whole. Jung taught that the shadow is not evil. It's just the unseen, and she is learning to see it all. The jealousy, the neediness, the fear, the rage. She invites them in like old friends, because denying them only makes them stronger. But naming them? That's liberation, and through that naming she becomes real. Not polished, not palatable, real. And that realness changes things. People fall away, doors close, but the ones who stay, they're different, deeper, truer, and they meet her where she is. Not where she pretends to be. She doesn't chase anymore. Not because she doesn't care, because she finally knows her value. If someone wants her, they'll show up. Fully, honestly, without games. Anything less isn't love. It's a performance, and she has no time for performances. Her life is too sacred for that. She used to dream of being chosen. Now she dreams of choosing. Not just people. Experiences. Environments. Emotions. She chooses what feels true. And she says no. A lot. Not out of arrogance, out of alignment. Her no is a boundary. Her yes is a blessing. And both come from power. This power is quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't dominate. It just is. You feel it when she walks in, when she speaks, when she holds your gaze without flinching. It's the power of someone who no longer needs to prove anything. Someone who has nothing to hide, nothing to lose, because she's already met herself, and she liked what she found. There's a stillness in her now, not emptiness, stillness, like the sea before a storm, like a prayer just before it's spoken. That's what happens when a woman stops waiting to be chosen. She becomes the one who chooses, and when that happens, everything changes. The way she walks, the way she breathes, the way she allows or refuses. There is no need to beg for what is already within her, but the world will try. It always tries. To reduce her, to label her, to tame her. It'll call her too much, too intense, too free. But she is no longer afraid of their fear. She knows it has nothing to do with her. She is the mirror, and when people haven't faced their own pain, their own need, their own unlived lives, they blame the mirror. Let them. She doesn't shatter for anyone anymore. Now she protects her energy like it's sacred, because it is. She knows what it costs to betray herself. She knows what it feels like to abandon her truth just to be loved. Never again. She would rather be alone in truth than together in a lie. That's the standard now. That's the baseline. Not chemistry, not comfort. Integrity, depth, alignment. If it doesn't honor her soul, it doesn't stay. She used to ask, why not me? Now she asks, why would I want someone who doesn't see me? That shift? That's everything. That's the turning point. When you stop taking rejection personally. When you stop mistaking absence for proof of your unworthiness. When you finally see that your value was never up for debate. And yet, she feels everything. That's what makes her dangerous. She's not numb. She's wide open. Every wound is still tender. Every loss still lingers. But she stopped pretending it didn't matter. She lets herself grieve, fully, without shame, because feeling deeply is not weakness. It's a portal to truth, to wholeness, to God. She doesn't pretend to have it all figured out. That too is an illusion. She just knows herself now. Not all of her, but enough. Enough to stop chasing people who drain her. Enough to stop breaking herself into pieces for those who don't even stay. Enough to walk away without burning down her own soul. And some nights she still aches. Let's not lie. Some nights the loneliness is loud, deafening. But even then she doesn't run from it. She sits with it. She says, okay, show me what I'm still afraid of. And in that silence, she meets herself again. The younger her, the forgotten her, the real her. And she holds her, with reverence, with sorrow, with love. That's the thing no one tells you. The woman who lives alone doesn't do it because she failed. She does it because she chose to stop failing herself. She stopped begging. She stopped bleeding. She stopped bending. She lives alone because she is not willing to die slowly inside something that pretends to be love. And sometimes when the world is quiet enough, she hears it. Not a voice, not an answer, a knowing, a deep embodied knowing that all of this, every tear, every rejection, every sleepless night, was never punishment. It was initiation. It was the sacred unraveling that had to happen for her to finally come home to herself. Jung wrote, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And she has, or at least she's learning to. That's what this life is. Not a race to be loved. A journey to remember you already are. She no longer sees solitude as lack. It's space. Space for healing, for becoming, for remembering. And if someone enters that space, they must come correct, not with promises, with presence, not with charm, with courage. Because loving a woman like her requires more than words. It requires truth. Brutal, inconvenient, naked truth. She doesn't fear love. She just refuses to suffer for it. She's done confusing chaos with passion. She's done confusing silence with peace. She knows now. Real love feels like freedom, not anxiety. Like clarity, not confusion. Like coming home, not being hunted. And if it never arrives, if no one ever comes to meet her on that sacred ground, she will still be whole, still radiant, still sovereign. Because the point was never to be chosen. The point was to choose herself again and again until her life became a reflection of her truth. They don't tell you that about women who live alone, that they are not abandoned. They are ascending, not incomplete, initiated, not broken, unleashed, and the world will not understand. It's not meant to. She is not here to be understood. She is here to be remembered by the part of you that forgot how holy you are. So let them talk, let them wonder, let them label. She doesn't belong to them. She belongs to the fire that forged her, to the silence that healed her, to the truth that raised her from the ashes. And when you see her, really see her, you'll feel it. That electric stillness, that sacred rage, that unapologetic grace. She is the woman who lives alone, not in isolation, in sovereignty. Not in bitterness, in truth. Not in waiting, in becoming. And now, she is finally free. If you made it to the end of this video, it means something inside you is waking up. A truth, a memory, a voice you silenced long ago, now rising from the depths, demanding to be heard. This wasn't just a video, it was a mirror, a confrontation, a ritual of remembrance. Because you were never meant to live small. You were never meant to perform for love, to contort for approval, to bleed for breadcrumbs of attention. You were meant to reign in your own life, not as a fantasy, as a truth. And yes, the path is lonely. Yes, it will cost you people, illusions, comfort. But what you gain is sacred. What you reclaim is priceless. Your time, your energy, your softness, your rage, your depth, your truth. This is not about becoming hard. It's about becoming whole. You are not too much. You are everything they tried to forget. You are the voice they tried to silence, the fire they tried to tame, the love they were too afraid to hold. And if they couldn't see you, if they couldn't stay, if they couldn't meet you where you are, then let them go. Not with bitterness, with clarity, with honor. You don't need to be rescued. You don't need to be completed. You don't need to be less. You just need to remember. You are the woman who walks alone, not because no one wanted her, but because she refused to settle for a love that asked her to shrink. You are the woman who walks alone because she is becoming the kind of woman she once prayed for. And if the world can't understand that, let it remain confused, because this is your time to rise, to soften, to speak, to choose, to burn, to feel, to stay. Not for them, for you. You're not alone in this. There are thousands, millions of women watching this right now who are feeling the same ache, the same call, the same fire in their bones. So breathe. Let your tears fall. Let your silence be sacred. And when you're ready, stand. Not for attention, for your truth. Because from this moment on, you don't belong to their labels. You don't belong to their projections. You don't belong to their fear. You belong to yourself, entirely, finally, forever.